In this matchup, I think I pulled off what I think is the most impressive thing I've ever done in Lorcana. And what's funny is I think I made a misplay because there was a play that I could have made to end the game that would have been potentially less epic, but we'll cover that when we get to it. In this video, as you can tell on screen and likely by the thumbnail and title, we're testing out Ruby Steel. And this is a deck that I just built for fun, but as it turns out, I think it is actually meta viable and competitive. My friend let me know after this match that there was a deck that top 8'd a Star City Games event, a 5K, that was Ruby Steel, and that was before it got the dedicated support in things like the Mulan and Mushu. Now, the Mulan, the new one, the Ruby Steel one, may not be something you want to use, but in this video we are going to test it out. So we're going up against an updated version, probably a more mid-range version I would say, which I actually like, what my friend is using here, in Amber Steel Mine. Here they start off with, I would say, with what's considered the best start. Turn 1 Daisy, turn 2 Mr. Smee, like that's 6 questing pressure on turn 2. I do get an additional card off of the Daisy and the Maui, which I ink for my turn here. And I'm in an interesting position where I could look to develop my own Mr. Smee and keep my Robin Hood ready for the shift on 3. The issue is there's a high likelihood that my opponent has either Strength and or Storm. So my Robin Hood likely gets turn 3 Strength or Stormed anyways. So I have to go in with the Queen of Hearts and take out the Daisy Duck. And if the Mr. Smee wants to challenge into the Robin Hood, that's fine. They'll lose their Mr. Smee unless they can play a Captain on turn 3, which they definitely could, but it's unlikely. And if they do have the song anyways, I was going to lose my Robin Hood regardless. So here my opponent thinks for a little while, and I think what they're going to do is end up inking a Strength. So if I would have left the Daisy Duck up, all they would have to do is play another character. Well, I guess they couldn't sing the Strength, right? So they would still be able to sing, they don't even need, they don't need 3 Strength, 3 damage. They could just hardcast the Strength with the Daisy and the Smee, and it would have dealt 2 damage to the Robin Hood to take it out anyways. But they have the Storm still, so the Storm was coming down on my Robin Hood regardless to stop the shift. They do end up questing with the Smee, and this is a position where I have kind of regained tempo thanks to the Queen of Hearts. I'm still behind on ink, and I will be for the entire game, unless my opponent misses an ink. But I'll be able to trade out the Queen of Hearts, the board state will be empty, and then I'll be the one to develop the character, and my opponent will have to start to react to my character. And that's the power of the Queen of Hearts. That's what it can do for you in the early game. Unfortunately, I don't have a very strong turn 3 play here. I don't want to play out this Jafar necessarily. I don't need the Strength boost. I'd rather save that for when it's a little bit more relevant. And honestly, Jafar, you know, I don't know if I'll keep him in the deck. You'll have to wait for the deck profile for me to go over kind of the critical pieces of how I made this. But we do trade out the Queen of Hearts with the Mr. Smee now. My opponent is ahead on lore, but I have the board presence now, and that's not bad for being somebody who was on the draw with Ruby Steel. On turn 4, though, they respond with their own Smee and now a Mine, the 7 Dwarves Mine, and this could be a problem. Unfortunately, the Jafar only gives +2 Challenger and not +3 like Merlin Crab, so it's not enough to give my Mr. Smee the boost it needs to deal the 6 damage. It would only deal 5, so I don't even bother playing it. I'd rather develop the Mulan, which is the vanilla 4-cost inkable 3/6 Mulan, which is crazy to play it, but I'll explain why. And this was a good choice. You know, I was really hesitant about putting vanillas into the deck, but it works out. And I keep the Jafar. So my opponent, once again, hardcast Storm, inks the Cindy. They've got the Mine up, but at 6 willpower, there's nothing really Amber Steel can do to threaten me here. They've got 2 cards left in their hand, and there's not much they can do. If they exert their Mr. Smee, they risk it getting run down by another rush character, or by this Mulan. They do end up gaining the lore from the Mine. They forgot to do it at the start of their turn, but they will catch it and do it. There they go. So yeah, they just pass without doing anything. They Storm and pass turn. So here I'm going to draw the Mulan and play the Mulan so I can discard one of my 2 Whole New Worlds, which is kind of a tell that I have a second one in hand. And this is where Whole New World, you know, I need a card draw engine for this deck, and I don't know if Whole New World is it, because you really don't want to give your opponent 7 new cards either, to be fair. But yeah, the Mulan being a 3/6 body for 4 is able to finish off the Dwarven Mine. the opponent has to respect the Mulan shift as well. This is my friend here who's played Amber, Ruby, Mufasa quite extensively, has tested both the Mulan shift lines and played against them quite a lot, and he knows how good they can be. So trying to quest with me and develop a board here puts him at risk of me shifting onto this 3/6 Mulan, and this is why I put this card in the deck, because yeah, ideally the 1-cost Mulans are a little bit more efficient, but they're so fragile. The 3/6 Mulan has a lot of staying power with its 6 willpower. It's not going to get Steel Song down, right? It survives even something like a Zeus. So for that reason, it gives me a reliable shift target, and it costs 4, and both of the Mulans, the Elite Archer and the new one, I forget what the new one's called, both of them are shift 5, right? So they can both shift on curve off of the 4-cost Mulan. Yes, it's not great to lose a 4-cost card, but when you have something as explosive as Mulan Elite Archer coming down to wipe out an opponent's board, it's worth the shift. Here my opponent plays a Rhino, which is a huge surprise. This card, I remember reviewing it in my Amber set review saying, you know, it's a decent card, but how does it fit its way into Amber Steel? There is no mid-range Amber Steel. Well, my opponent is proving me wrong here. My friend is showing the power of the Rhino here. It gives everything other than itself +2 willpower, which is quite disruptive, quite hard to deal with. And then itself is a 4/7 stat line, which is crazy. I draw into a Scar here, so I'm just going to go ahead, ink, and drop this. This deck, by the way, it only plays 7 Uninkables. I actually played 2 Dinner Bells. I took them out after this match, but I probably will put them back in. I play 3 Whole New Worlds, and I play 2 Scar. Of course, there's different ways you could build this deck, right? The one that topped the SCG event was like a Maui Shark build, which arguably is very strong too. But I was opting for a little bit more of a Mulan focused build, and to my surprise, this was very, very effective. So we draw finally one of our big characters, and this is what was holding us back. You know, we were in a really advantageous position, but we just weren't drawing our high impact cards. We drew a Scar, we drew a Mulan, so we can kind of contest the board a little bit. I shift Mulan for 5, but unfortunately I have nothing to challenge into, because could you imagine if I was able to take out a threat with my Mulan and then make my Scar have the ability to attack readied characters? I would have wiped out the rest of the board, right? So my friend, again, being somebody who's experienced and knows not to play into the Mulan shift, even though I didn't necessarily have it, I ended up top decking into it. And I think I play either 6 or 7 Mulans, I don't remember, of the big Mulans between the Elite Archer, which you see in my hand now, and the one that's on the board. He knows not to play into them. So yeah, we Whole New World, we sing it obviously. We're able to quest with the new Mulan because she has evasive, so she's relatively safe. But I need to protect my Scar, so I ink for turn, and with my last 3 ink, I hard cast the I'm Still Here to give my Scar resist +2, which means it now does not also take a damage from this Tinkerbell, because what my opponent had on board wasn't going to be enough to take out my Scar with the resist +2, right? The Mufasa would only put through 1 damage, the Smee puts through 1, and the Rhino would put through 2. That's only 4 damage total. So my Scar would have 4 damage, but they lose all their characters basically in the process, except for the Rhino having the 7 willpower. My opponent here goes wide on the board by dropping a Tinkerbell and a Daisy. And again, they're just trying to build up to 20 lore, hoping that I'm not on Be Prepared, and lucky for them I'm not, because I have these character-based removals in the Mulan and the Scar and things like that, and I need them to exert character zone. This is where a card like Zero to Hero could absolutely change the game, because I sing it or hardcast it and put it onto the new Ruby Steel Mulan. Then she can challenge a ready character. Then it gives my Scar the ability to challenge ready characters, and then he wipes out the rest of the board. And what's crazy here is this is my 10th ink, I believe. No, that's 9 ink. Wait, is it? Yeah, no, sorry, that's 9 ink. Oop, I end up accidentally inking the Robin. I'm going to play the Robin Hood and play a Lucky Dime, so that's 5 and 4. And what's crazy is I have game in my hand if my opponent exerts his board, because I could drop double Mushu. And this is like the Yu-Gi-Oh player mindset taking over, where I'm so used to cards having you can only activate one of this card in a turn. So I'm like, oh yeah, I can only play 1 Mushu. I can't play 2 Mushus because, you can only use Mushu effect once per turn, once per character, in an interaction. That's been ingrained in you after you play Yu-Gi-Oh so much. But what I could do next turn with 10 ink is drop double Mushu, and if my opponent has an exerted board, if he doesn't get to 20 lore, I will gain resist 4 on my Scar, or if I had 0 to hero, you know, so Scar could challenge readied characters, gain the resist 4, and then gain 4 lore for every challenge. And that's just game, right? What is 4 times 4 is 16, so 5 challenges is game with the Scar, and I have resist 4, so Scar is taking out everything, and it's readying itself up in the meantime. My opponent now thinks he's safe because of the Bagheera that's coming down here. It has bodyguard, and it will be a grab your swords on banish, so all of my characters will take 2 damage. And then he hard casts the strength, and this is a misplay by my opponent. I think he was thinking, you know, he doesn't want to, because the dinner bell is on board and stuff, he's like, oh, he can use the Robin Hood, challenge the Bagheera, take 4 damage, and then take another 2 damage, which would actually banish my Robin Hood. But then I gain 2 lore in the process. But if I was somehow able to like give resist to my Robin Hood with like an I'm still here, then I could dinner bell it away after, and you know, get a couple of draws off there. But my opponent ends up questing to 16. Like, how am I clearing the rest of your board, right? And this is where I could just drop the double Mushu, challenge with the Scar into the bodyguard Bagheera, gain 4 lore, take 0 damage in the challenge because the double Mushu would give Scar resist +4. Then the Bagheera gets banished. And I believe, and we have to look up this ruling, but I believe what would happen is the Scar would still take the 2 damage from the Bagheera because the resist will no longer apply since the challenge is over, and now the Bagheera is banished, and therefore its new effect starts a new like chain or a new bag. But my friend was like, he's not sure if the Scar's resist would apply to the Bagheera effect after it's banished. So again, that's another thing that we need to confirm with this, but I believe I do take the 2 damage off of the Scar after the Bagheera is banished. But yeah, I don't see that line, or you know, just again, the Yu-Gi-Oh player in me is like, I can only play 1 Mushu. So I end up going for a 5-shift a 5-shift Mulan, and I'm thinking this through, even though I end up like putting through the actions. I'm like, yeah, if I go into the Bagheera, my opponent just like puts it in the grave, I move my damage, and I'm like, yeah, I go to the grave. But I'm like, oh no, like I'm gonna actually like think it through and see what I can do. Sorry if I coughed into the mic there, I apologize. Maybe I can cut that out. If you didn't hear it, I mean, it means I cut it out. But yeah, I'm thinking it through here, and I'm like, okay, I am going to obviously deploy a Mushu. So I end up inking, you know, whatever, the new Mulan, putting down the Mushu for my final 5 ink, and then, you know, he will take the damage off the Bagheera, or from the Bagheera, but that's fine. It will give resist to the Mulan when it challenges, and I'll gain 2 lore off the challenge into the Bagheera as well. So Mulan will end up taking... Wait, my Mulan will actually live, right? Because she has 1 damage on her right now. And then... Yeah, I'm just talking about the math. I'm like, yeah, let me just work this math out. I think I can actually like clear your board and like survive. And he was like okay. He's probably thinking like, there's no way. But like, I know he was aware of the Mushu, but I don't know if he was aware of like how good it is, because not only is it going to give me the resist, but it's going to get me back into this game by getting me like all the lore. So yeah, what I do is I challenge with the Mulan. I should have only taken 2 damage, not 4 from the Bagheera. So my Mulan should actually live. I deal the extra 5 damage, right? Because Mulan did 5 damage into Bagheera, banished a character, so the Mulan Elite Archer effect triggers. And I will have to put damage into the Rhino and the Tinkerbell, I believe. So here, okay, so I'm actually going to go through the motions now. Again, my Mulan should not have been banished, so, you know, we're just testing, we're working things out. Yeah, just make sure everything is organized. Then I use... Oh, no, sorry, yeah, then I use my big Mulan to banish the Rhino, and this will allow my Scar to survive every other interaction and gain all the lore in the process. So I've taken out 2 characters so far. I gain... Wait a minute. I gotta go back and double check. Should my other Mulan have even been banished there? Because it had 2... I don't think so, because it gained resist from the Mushu. I gotta go back and double check. But I know for sure my Scar is able to wipe out this whole board, gain all this lore in the process of the Mushu. So you can see, like, I didn't even need to do the Mulan shift, right? You guys see that now? Like, I see that now, but, like, in the moment, I was like, Yu-Gi-Oh brain. But yeah, so the Scar ends up taking out everything. It triggers the Mufasa, which gets a dock, and I'm like, yeah, we're just making sure the math is correct and my Scar is able to survive every one of these interactions. I think both my Mulan should have survived though. So yeah, big mistake on my part, not paying attention there. Unfortunately, I'm tapped out, so I can't like Dinner Bell the Scar away to draw like 10 cards, or 4 cards I should say, because yeah, I used all 10 ink. But now I'm at 18. I've got this readied up Mushu. I've got a Scar that they need a song for basically to get rid of. And then they have to develop 4 lore on board to threaten game. Okay, they have a Dwarf Mine, which is pretty strong, but I think they overextended a little bit. Yeah, they have to ink because they have to play a character and then move that character to the mine to deal the final 1 damage to the Scar. They don't have enough to play multiple characters and deal with the Scar, clearly. So with only 3 lore on board, I can actually opt to, yeah, they have 1 card left in hand, just quest with the Mushu, probably play out my other Mushu and my Mr. Smee and win the game. But you saw how like insane that Mulan Scar interaction was. Into aggro decks, Ruby Steel should absolutely crush them. You don't even need the songs or the actions. Like, this setup with the Mushu is so strong. It's great counterplay into aggro. My friend and I were talking about after, like, how do we beat like Ruby Sapphire and Sapphire Steel and stuff. And you know, that's where I think if you were going with like the Shark version, or even not even the Shark version, but like playing just I flatten them, or I find them, I flatten them to just banish all the items, could be enough to just like, you know, stall the game out. And maybe you play a lower to the ground aggro package, because there's a lot of good 2 questing bodies early on in Ruby and Steel that you could play. But yeah, like I said, just play out the Pete, stop any action, any song. My opponent can't really do much. Mufasa misses anyways when he challenges. I'm not sure what he could really hit there to help him win the game. He goes to 17 off the mine, sorry, but he can't win the game. And just like that, winning going second with Ruby Steel against a fairly competitive version of Amber Steel, in my opinion, with an insane Mushu Scar play. Make sure you stay tuned for more on this deck. If you're interested, make sure you drop a like as well if you made it this far. Thank you again for watching. As usual, Quantum is out.